All right. So we'll talk about physiological and metabolic effects of caffeine. So we'll discuss the uh, caffeine as a potential ergogenic, and caffeine has been the most widely used ergogenic. And I have given you my opinion about caffeine, and I admit I'm a caffeine user. I do like the caffeine effect. I had my morning dose today. Caffeine is the most socially accepted drug that nobody gets upset and nobody feels bad to admit that they're using drugs. I don't think do we have any Canadian person here in the class? Okay. I mean, are you from Toronto? Okay, you're not. Okay, so I don't think your major was referring to caffeine yesterday when he was announcing, the major of Toronto announced yesterday that he was taking illegal drugs, not caffeine. Yeah, it was a big discussion yesterday in the news all over. Maybe I didn't follow them earlier on. Anyway, um, anyway, let's go back to caffeine. I mean, probably he was taking caffeine on the top of it because if you combine drugs with caffeine, you have even an additive effect. Anyway, so we'll talk about a little bit about the background. I'll give you some information about molecular and cellular action. I'm not gonna kill you. I'm not gonna drive you crazy with caffeine. I do like caffeine. I've done some work with caffeine, and I published several papers on caffeine. But caffeine is something I would say that most people use. There is like the percent of use in the world and in the United States particularly, it's fairly high. And chronic consumption of caffeine seems to be linked to many different effects and many different systems. So there are data linking caffeine use with all those conditions from cardiovascular degrees, hypertension, drug abuse, dependence, reproductive failure, psychiatric disturbances, osteoporosis, cancer, and even Parkinson. Actually, in Parkinson, it seems to have probably a beneficial effect. So versus most of the other ones, it doesn't seem to be so positive. Caffeine source in our diet, it comes in many different means. We usually associate caffeine intake with coffee. So how much coffee you drink, and then you say, oh, approximately this is how much caffeine I take per day. So coffee is the main source, and then we have tea, hot chocolate, chocolate bars, soft drinks. Some of the soft drinks have significant amount of caffeine. Energy drinks is a big source of caffeine intake. And of course, over-the-counter medication or over-the-counter drugs that they do have caffeine. Either you take caffeine as a pill that is not controlled, and you can go to any shop and buy caffeine. You can even stop by a gas station and buy caffeine pills. Truck drivers like to get those pills, to have at least a box of those pills with them when they drive. And a lot of over-the-counter medication, they use caffeine as a vehicle to enhance the effect of the medication. Like, for example, some of the painkillers have paracetamol, which is like Tylenol type of painkiller, central nervous system painkiller. And some of those, usually some of those that they use the word extra at the end, they also have caffeine to a content of approximately between 40, 50, 80 milligrams per pill. So caffeine also can be seen in many over-the-counter medication. Caffeine consumption, and those are data expressed. You'll see usually caffeine consumption is either expressed as milligrams. So you can see total milligrams, something like 100, 200, 400, or sometimes it's being expressed as milligram per kilogram of body weight. So just to give you an idea, I think a simple number probably to remember if you want to get an idea how much caffeine you consume, and an average, a coffee cup, depends of course how heavy the coffee it is or not. We'll have approximately between 80 to 100 milligrams of caffeine. So a cup of coffee, about 100 milligrams. An equivalent of 100 milligrams, if you look at it as milligrams per kilogram of body weight, for an average person who is not 400 pounds and is not 110 pounds, it's probably between 1.5, 1.5 milligrams per kilogram body weight. Okay. So if you look across different countries, United States is right here. Average coffee consumption is between 2.5, at least in the United States, 2.5 to 3 milligrams per kilogram of body weight per day. So if you express that as cups of coffee, it's somewhere between 2 to 3 cups of coffee per day. Of course, you see some other countries that there are champions in that sport. You see Netherlands, 6 milligrams or more, so more than double the US amount, Norway and Sweden. So it looks like Northern Europeans are the heavy caffeine consumers. I don't know if the Netherlands, maybe they consume other stuff also with the coffee. So caffeine in sports, and which is our main topic, and the reason I'm willing to spend so much time talking about caffeine is because there is a very high consumption of caffeine in sports. Looking at different data, depends on the sports and depends on the country and depends on different studies. You can see percent use that range between 25, 30, all the way up to 70 or 80%. Depends on the study and depends on the sport, depends on the country. So it's caffeine is something that has been very widely used, other than average people like me, that they're not competitive athletes. And if you look at caffeine intake per day, here the dose is expressed as milligram per day, so roughly 200 milligrams. If you get an idea, it's about 2 cups of coffee. Here we have different age groups, 18 to 24, and we have both genders, 25 to 29, 30 to 39, and 40 plus. If you look carefully, you'll see there is a trend of moving into more coffee products as the main source of caffeine versus more energy drinks and cola products in the younger ages. So you see here, this color represents energy drinks, and this color is very, very big in 18 to 24, 25, 29, and it seems that it decreases in 30 to 39, and then when you go up, it really becomes very small. So the target population for this type of energy drinks, it's mainly people sub 40 years old, and I would say mainly college age students, 18 to 25, 29. And on the other side, you see caffeine as coffee, which is this very dark color. It becomes really popular, and consumption really goes up significantly in the age group 40 plus. Cola is also decreases if you look from here going down, and one, of course, among the sugar sweetened beverages, the SSDs, other than colas, also other than the energy drinks, I would say other product that has a lot of caffeine is Mountain Dew, which is a very popular drink among teenagers and young kids, because they do realize that caffeine does have an effect in the body. Caffeine is something that when you consume caffeine, you know it within a few minutes. You know that caffeine wakes you up. It's very difficult to do placebo studies, in a sense, because if I give you to drink caffeinated or decaffeinated coffee, it's really difficult not to be able to differentiate between the regular and the decaf coffee. I mean, you know it within a few minutes that you have taken caffeine. Energy drinks, anybody wants to, what is the energy drink and what differentiates energy drink versus other drinks, like other sodas? Has more caffeine. It's also fizzy, has carbonation like most of the soft drinks. What else? There are other substances that they claim to be stimulants or whatever, like taurine is one of them. That I think Red Bull was the first company that came up with this. Taurine makes you fly, and taurine. I don't know how many of you have a cat. Okay, give some Red Bull in your cats. You might need that, because taurine is an essential amino acid for cats. Uh, essential, I don't know if you remember from your biochemistry what is essential amino acid. You remember what's essential versus non-essential amino acids? So you have to consume it. Your body cannot make it. So the ones that you have to take from your diet are what we call essential amino acids. So for cats, taurine is an essential amino acid. I was kidding. Don't give caffeine to your cat. At least not at night. Uh, give caffeine with taurine together, so you'll be like, you'll have a party at night. Uh, anyway, what I was trying to say is taurine is an amino acid that humans can make anyway. It's not an essential amino acid in humans. So taurine might have some metabolic effects in the body. It's not as effective as some energy drinks are claiming. Unfortunately, caffeine does not have a good name. Caffeine is a drug, and nobody wants to associate a beverage or any product with a drug. I mean, nobody will come out on the news and say, you know, I'm selling this fantastic energy bar that also has a drug, you know, and it can really help you. And the main kick that you get it from the drug, not from the energy bar itself. But on the other side, caffeine does work. And I think I'll show you a lot of data showing you that at least for exercise performance, and actually there are several data also for cognitive performance that exercise, caffeine does have an ergogenic effect. But on the other side, the energy drinks do not like to advertise that energy drinks have a lot of caffeine. They advertise other stuff. They advertise that they're cool. They advertise that they are the choice of the best motorcyclists. They're the choice of the rock stars. They have some magic component that is stimulating because it has ginger extract, for example, or different substances. But they don't like to advertise caffeine. I remember 2 years ago, I was in a sports nutrition conference in the Netherlands. And can't remember the name of the company. It was one of those companies, one of the most popular companies that makes the energy shots. You have seen them pretty much everywhere. You go to pay in Walmart or to Walgreens, and you see those teeny tiny energy shots. You have seen the advertisements on the TV. You feel tired, you take the energy shot, and then you can fly. So those energy shots, they are nothing more than like lots of caffeine. So I was in that conference, and somebody was presenting from that company explaining that if you take this energy shot, then you're more effective when you do wind gate testing, if you do running tests, and on and on and on. So my question was whether they use any true placebo for their product. I'm like, did you use caffeine? Did you take something that was exactly the same in caffeine content and prove that your product is better because it has the magic recipe beyond caffeine? Oh no, we didn't do that. We just compared it with similar volume of like similar flavor liquid that didn't have caffeine. I'm like, yes. Of course, so you don't know whether it is an effect of caffeine or if it is an effect of your product itself. Like, oh, we believe that it's effect of our product. Yes, but you have not done the research. Like, no, we haven't done it. So the truth is they haven't done it because we know the answer. The answer is that caffeine does all the business. It's not the other constituencies of the product. It's not the extracts, the herbal extracts that they have. It's not the amino acids that they might put. It's not like the 1 gram of electrolytes or whatever they will put in that solution. It's the caffeine that does all the business. So I'll show you several studies showing very high percent of use of caffeine in many different populations, and this is one of them actually. Harris Lieberman is a psychologist from U.S. Army Institute of Environmental Medicine in Natick, Massachusetts, which is one of the biggest Army Research Institute. So they measure about close to 1,000 U.S. Army soldiers, and they found that more than 82% of them were regular caffeine users, whether it was in the form of coffee or in the form of supplement. supplemental, whether it's a pill or something, some other source of caffeine intake. So why people use caffeine? I guess there are many different explanations why it's caffeine. I think number one is perceived. I would say there is a perceived efficiency. Like you take it, you feel it, and if you get hooked to caffeine and you don't take your caffeine dose, then you know it. You're sleepy if you don't take your caffeine, and you also get side effects. I drink about, I would say, 2 to 3 cups of coffee per day. I always have a coffee in the morning. I always have a coffee about in the middle of the day, and usually I have another cup of coffee maybe midday. If I don't take my coffee, I get these terrible migraines, and then a little later I realize, I'm like, why do I have this headache today? And then I go back and I'm like, oh, I didn't have my coffee. I cannot forget my morning coffee. I have to admit that. I wake up in the morning. I can forget other things. I won't forget to drink my coffee in the morning. So what is the caffeine effect, and how much of caffeine is good for us, and how much it might be a problem? So of course, caffeine in very high dose, it could be lethal. And I'll show you some data from people that they tried crazy stuff and died from taking too much caffeine. 10 grams, which is practically impossible to take it in the form of coffee. It's like I said 100 milligrams, it's one coffee. So if you calculate, that means you have to have like 100 espressos to reach the within like maybe in a few hours or something. You cannot do that. You cannot drink so much coffee to kill yourself. To reach that dose of 10 grams of absolute quantity of coffee. 2 to 5 grams can induce like serious side effects because you will stimulate spinal cord activity, and that will give you like inability to have appropriate motor control. Around 1 to 1.5 grams, you get agitation, anxiety, tremors, and there are different terms that have been used in the literature, like caffeineism, insomnia, of course, mood changes, cardiac arrest. But the most common side effects of caffeine, especially people that are not used to caffeine, number one, or people that they are sensitive to caffeine. I know many people are very sensitive to caffeine. I have a very good friend of mine. If he drinks a cola drink, just one cola drink that has depends on the brand and how much you drink, 20 to 40 milligrams of caffeine, which is very, very low amount, he won't be able to sleep for about 2 days. And he gets like really nervous. He's a person who is very excited in general. He's a very hyper person. You give him a little bit caffeine, then you have the recipe for distraction probably. But some people are sensitive to caffeine, and they do know. I mean, I bet some of you are sensitive to caffeine, and when you drink coffee, or if you have like caffeinated drink, you get really hyper and you get like agitated and you get insomnia. But the most common side effects of caffeine is about heart arrhythmias. You feel like this. You feel your heart speeding, and also gastrointestinal disturbances like burning in your stomach, heartburn. This is one of the most common side effects of caffeine. And the reason being, caffeine will stimulate hydrochloric acid secretion, and hydrochloric acid is an acid and will create this burning sensation in the stomach. So staying up at night sometimes, anxiety, in combination of caffeine. I mean, many times if we have to, I don't know, study for an exam or do something, finish something, and we have to work late at night, and usually caffeine is a way to help you to stay up for some hours easier. One of the major side effects is tachycardia, like your heart arrhythmias, and GI problems. Smaller intake of caffeine, somewhere between 0.1 to 0.2 grams, so 100 to 200 milligrams, 1 to 2 cups of coffees, are linked to increased mental alertness, faster thinking, wakefulness, restlessness, reduced fatigue, and delayed need for sleep. So the potential beneficial effect of caffeine seems to be in a very low dose, and most of the side effects start to appear in higher doses. Doses usually that is difficult to take from regular pathways by drinking a product, or drinking or eating a supplement. And those side effects are mainly a result of significant amount, either isolated caffeine in powder or pills rich in caffeine. Just to give you an idea, the most of the pills that are commercially available, if you go like to a drugstore and you buy caffeine, the most commonly known brands is like Vibrine, and their motto is Vive to Revive, or No Dose, NODOZ. So those two brands are available in 200 milligrams. So just one pill is equivalent of like more than 2 cups of strong coffee. So association of coffee drinking and total and cause-specific mortality. This is actually a very recent study that was published, I think, a year and a half ago. They took more than 200,000 men and close to 200,000 women, and between the age of 50 and 71 years old, and they follow them up for about 5 million person years. So each person participating, for example, for 10 years in this study, 10 years follow-up, it's 10 person year. And the data were collected between 1995 to 2008. And this is what they found. So they have all cause of deaths for any caffeine. The way that the data are presented, they're separately for men and women. And if you look down in the x-axis, what they have the hazard ratio, which is an index used in biostatistics, try to identify whether whatever is the factor that you're studying, whether it helps to reduce the possibility of dying, so it has a protective mechanism, or it's inducing something bad for you. So if you see any data being to the right side of that 1.0 hazard ratio, means that coffee is a risk. And if you see any data being on the left, means coffee is a protective. So men and women, this is overall cause of death of any coffee, caffeinated coffee, or decaffeinated coffee. And I repeat, these are from a lot of data. We're talking about close to 500,000 people that they were followed for several years. So it's a very, very powerful study. So this is what they found, that there is a mild positive effect of coffee drinking as far as overall death. Not much of difference. Maybe there was a minor difference between caffeinated and not caffeinated coffee. And if you look different causes like cancer, it doesn't seem to have any protective effect. If any, might be actually bad for you. Heart disease, respiratory, stroke, injuries and accidents, diabetes. There is a lot of variability. If you look at this line, the bigger the line, the biggest the variability. Infection disease, and this is other cause of deaths. So overall, looking at this data, at least we can say that coffee itself, it doesn't seem to be a bad thing for you. So at least it doesn't seem to increase by any means the possibility of dying earlier or developing any disease. I would say I don't think there is strong data. This data are probably on the top of the baseline. There are several data showing specifically for diabetes that people that they consume coffee, they have lower risk of developing diabetes. And the caffeine consumption that might be protective, bless you, it seems to be a coffee intake of approximately 1 to 2 cups a day. Can you think of any reason how coffee can be protective? Why coffee could be good for you? I mean, I'm telling you, coffee has caffeine, and caffeine is a drug. So how could it be good for you? Can you think of any potential Protective mechanism of coffee? I didn't hear. Antioxidants. Uh, Coffee is a fruit. So, however, let's be clear. If you hear people saying, fruits and vegetables are good for you, they don't refer to coffee. Okay? This is not like 5 a day. Does not refer to have 5 cups a day. Okay? So, and coffee and coffee beans specifically are very rich in antioxidants. There was a study published a few years ago showing that people that follow Western diet, and it's not only in the United States, I would say most of the Western world, like North America in general, Europe, and many other developing countries are unfortunately probably following a Western diet. So people that follow Western diet, or another term, diet low in fibers and fruits and vegetables, the main source of antioxidants is coffee. So, and in some people, it can count as much as more than 80% of all the dietary intake of antioxidants. So if you completely remove coffee from diet, you take away all these 80% of antioxidants in some populations. So coffee per se is not that bad. But let me clarify what is coffee. So coffee is not the frappuccino with 1 pound of cream on the top and caramel and chocolate on the top. This is a different thing. This is like a cheesecake in a glass. All right. This is like 1,000 calories in one glass. This is an easy way to gain weight. If you're looking to gain weight, if you're like a lineman, try to make some weight, or you're a wrestler and you're trying to make the upper category, you want to gain weight quickly, start drinking a lot of those shakes. You can very easily increase your caloric intake. So I'm not referring to this type of coffee. This type of coffee probably is as good as a dessert. And if you like desserts, have a dessert. Enjoy a small amount of a dessert and enjoy these calories. Coffee, you know what is coffee. Coffee is coffee. And coffee does not have any calories unless you put calories, unless you put sugar. And then you want to put some milk, then you put some extra calories. But then when you start with whipped cream and caramel and this, you make like a dessert-looking coffee that it can very, very easily give you like, I'm not kidding, there are coffees that they will give you like 1,000 calories. And if you don't believe me, go by the drive-thru by Starbucks. They have the calories actually on the screen. Go by McDonald's by the drive-thru and read the coffee frappes and read the calories. And if you stay there around for some time and see who are the best customers, are probably the kids coming out of Ramey or FHS, that they want to be cool and have the nice coffees, the big coffees with a lot of stuff on the top. Anyway, so this study was published all the way, they took data all the way back from 2005, where this kind of like glamorous coffees were not that popular. So death by caffeine, how many caffeine-related fatalities and real misses must there be before we regulate? There is a voice. There are people that are thinking that we have to regulate caffeine use. I don't know how far we can go, and but there are fatalities, and those are a number of cases of people that they have died. And those are cases for energy drinks. This is alcohol with caffeine in the drinks. So very popular recipe, energy drink, whether Red Bull, whether Monster, whether, one of those energy drinks with vodka, tequila, on and on. You can make your own drinks. You know them probably better than I do. And we have diet aids. A lot of diet pills are very high in caffeine. The first diet pills that were commercially available back in the 70s were nothing more than pure caffeine. So people will take them to lose weight, and usually what kind of people want to lose weight or need to lose weight? I mean, of course you have people that want to improve their looks, but also you have people that they really have a medical reason to lose weight. So people that they have high blood pressure, for example, right? Or people that they have, many health complications, kidney problems, obesity-linked cardiovascular disease. So what is the first side effects of caffeine? When you take caffeine, I said your heart rate goes up, and what else goes up? From cardiovascular, blood pressure. So hypertension or increase in blood pressure, it's the most commonly known side effect of caffeine. So imagine you're hypertensive, and your doctor says, you have to lose weight. And you have tried everything. I don't know how many of you have tried to lose weight, but losing weight is not an easy thing. And everybody knows that. That's why there are so many commercials in the TV. People have tried 1,000 different magic regimes and nothing worked, but they think that the 1,001, it's going to make the difference. Now you're going to lose weight with this magic wrap around your waist. You put the cream in the plastic wrap, and now you're going to lose weight, all right? So you have comorbidities, you have pathologies, you have hypertension, and now that you have decided that this magic pill is going to make you lose weight, you take it, it's full of caffeine, it increases your blood pressure even higher, you can get a stroke, and then you can die, and you become statistics in this table. Miscellaneous stimulants and street drugs, also these are the biggest chunk in these type of statistics. But what I'm trying to say, this combination of energy drinks, and especially energy drinks with caffeine, with alcohol, seems to be a relatively big problem. Those are some data that were published also last year, and they were showing data all the way up to 2010. Energy drinks is a big business. Back in 2006, and this is business that is growing every single year. Back in 2006, energy drinks business was $5.6 billion. Red Bull alone, like 2 years ago that I checked the numbers, they had like a revenue of approximately $6 billion alone as one brand. I'm not talking about all of them together. That's why they can afford sending people to the moon and jump from the moon down to Earth. That's why they can afford to set up like a show in Las Vegas and jump with a motorcycle over like 3 buildings. Okay. It's not going to make you a better rider actually if you have caffeine alone. Okay, it takes more skills than that. Caffeine and alcohol, it's one of the big problem actually, and this seems to be a big complication. And there are also drinks that are pre-mixed, prepared with alcohol and caffeine together. Some of those drinks that are commercially available nowadays. So caffeine side effects has been clearly associated with adverse health effect in some susceptible individuals. So who is susceptible individuals? We don't know, but you can figure out as soon as you start taking caffeine. You know that when you have major side effects, then you know that you belong in this category of susceptible individuals. Among adolescents, caffeine consumption has been linked to elevated blood pressure and sleep problems. Pregnant women with high caffeine intake is associated with late miscarriages, stillbirths, and small gestational age infants. So in pregnancy specifically, they're fairly strong data. Caffeine, of course, as I told you before, has been used as appetite depressant or a way to lose weight. We did a study actually a few years ago, and we found that caffeinated coffee, we use coffee, caffeinated versus non-caffeinated, at least acutely, we didn't find any effect in energy intake. So what we did, we took subjects, we gave them either caffeinated or non-caffeinated coffee. We waited for a few hours, and then we gave them a meal. And the meal was unlimited quantity. It was like a buffet type. We had many different options. You eat as much as you want. And the only thing we were doing, you're hungry already, right? The only thing we're doing, we were writing down the amount of food that people were eating. So trying to calculate caloric intake. And we didn't find any difference in caloric intake. The only thing we found is that caffeine intake will maintain on higher cortisol levels all throughout the day. So cortisol and other sympathetic nervous system hormones are linked to caffeine intake. There are several caffeine fatalities, and those are 4 cases published a few years ago, back in 2004, of 4 separate kids that with relatively small amount of caffeine, they died just because they were very, very sensitive to caffeine individuals. There was a study actually just came out last week. I just saw it last week, and I copy-pasted this morning actually in my presentation. There was a case of this person who tried to take like a massive amount of caffeine. He tried close to 10 grams of caffeine. He bought caffeine through the internet in like powder, as a powder, and he tried to make his own mix with really high levels of caffeine, and of course, he managed to kill himself. On the other side, coffee consumption, I keep moving between caffeine and coffee because we kind of like use them synonymously, the two terms. Coffee consumption and risk specifically of type 2 diabetes seems to be, I would say, a good recipe. And actually this group is out of Walter Willett, is the head of epidemiology in Harvard School of Public Health. And so it's a very big study from a very well-respected group, and they found that coffee consumption does have a protective effect. There is a significant body of scientists suggesting that one of the protective effects of caffeine, it's not necessarily linked to antioxidants or some magic substance that there is in coffee, is probably linked to your lifestyle. So what they're trying to say is this, that when you take your time to have some coffee in a busy day, for example, you try to relax. And a lot of people, when they have coffee, they probably slow down, they stop working, they probably socialize, and they talk to other people. And all that act of relaxing throughout the day, not constantly, okay? Not only drinking coffee, but also working. If you do take the time to relax for a little bit, this seems to have a protective effect in your health. There are a lot of relatively newer data showing that socializing with other people and relaxing throughout the day, taking the break and taking the time to socialize, that has a protective effect, at least for cardiovascular disease and diabetes. So anyway, I just wanted to tell you that. I don't think it's the only effect of caffeine, because many people drink caffeine, they drink coffee, they swallow the coffee, and they go back to work, hoping that caffeine will do the magic and they will keep them up and make them work more productively for the rest of the day. So I will stop here for a few minutes, and then we'll go back and